The holidays are coming. Let's take care of our local seniors. They have a lot of blues during the holiday season. Stick around for the next episode of Senior Care Made Simple podcast.
Welcome to Senior Care Made Simple, an elder care podcast, your guide to navigating home health care with confidence. Hosted by Andrea Albertini, founder and CEO of Horizon Care Services, an industry leader in private duty home care in South Florida. To learn more, visit horizoncareservices.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Andrea Albertini, the host of Senior Care Made Simple podcast, and I am here today with Doris Muscarella.
Hello there. I'm excited today. I have an amazing guest.
I know, and I thank you so much. We're very excited today to have Dr. Priscilla Marotta. She is a nationally recognized cognitive behavior psychologist. Welcome, doctor. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, I guess I'll do the same. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, since we don't know when anybody's listening. It's a pleasure to be here. I think that both as a senior myself and somebody that's been in geropsychology for decades, it's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your background. It's very impressive.
Well, that's nice of you to say, Doris, but we've known each other a while. But primarily, when I did my residency at the Boston VA, I headed up one of the first geriatric evaluation units. When seniors are hospitalized, particularly with some end-of-life issues, there's lots of decisions, whether it be, are they going to have a feeding tube? Do you keep them on a ventilator? Things that are very difficult decisions for families to make, which is one of the reasons we always like to say that everybody should have an advanced learning directive. But to finish with my background, is that I am a cognitive behavioral therapist with a specific emphasis on geropsychology. I've had the pleasure of founding a group practice. At the present time, I am on medical staff at both Ocala Hospital and West Marion Hospital, where we obviously, being in Florida, have a large elderly population. And I was the author of 2 books, and my last book was Power Skills for Women, because we always want to leverage women and their talent, and obviously we have some talented women here today, and that just, is a pleasure to join.
Thank you. I read both of your books. They were amazing.
Thank you.
Well, I know that the holidays have approaching us. We have our Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And with that being said, we have a lot of different depression on the elderly. And I know that you have a lot of insights on that, Doc. Would you like to share a little bit with us?
Yes, I think first of all, we have a number of dynamics that are unusual. Okay, first of all, where do we start calling anybody elderly? Which is a very interesting developmental question, because today's seniors are very, very active. In Florida, we really don't even consider anybody a little bit elderly until they're in their 80s, which brings up a very, very important point, that we are the baby boomer generation. And as we have moved through the developmental stages, our parents did not live this long. Because of all the advances, people are living longer. And sometimes that creates a different sense of difficulties, particularly for their adult children, because you have what we call the sandwich generation, and that's the generation that has children themselves and has elderly parents. So they are having stressors on both sides of their life. I think one of the things that people don't understand about psychology today is people should use their medical benefits, because psychology is not about pathology. Psychology is about navigating your life, navigating some of the challenges. Life is just getting more complicated, from AI to some of the divisiveness we see in the culture, So I think that there's no role models. One of the ways that we navigate our lives is to see the role models. But for most of us, our parents maybe died in their 60s. They didn't see role models, 70s, 80s. And you would not believe the number of people that are living into their 90s and seeing 100. So this is a brand new development.
So, but how in the holidays, for some reason, and I consider myself a senior, we get very depressed. For some reason, it's just sad, and it's not supposed to be that way. How do you feel about that? What do you think?
Well, when we talk about depression, and interesting, there's two ways about depression. In depression is, yes, you can feel a little bit sad, and we'll talk about the holiday blues. But you also, and people don't realize this, is people get irritable. That one of the largest signs of depression is low frustration tolerance and irritability. And people don't understand that as depression. I think one of the things that happens during the holidays is, first of all, you have to understand it's the ending of another year. Okay. And as we're navigating through, oh my God, I'm 50. Oh my God, I'm 60. Oh my God, I'm 75. I think one of the biggest challenges is not to live the number, that live your life, not your age. Because if you start living the number, then you start putting in all these expectations, or you start putting in the shoulds. And by the way, any shoulds that you have in your vocabulary, you should eliminate, because there's not shoulds, there's just choices. I also think that family relationships are complicated. So as it becomes the holiday times, who have I lost? As we do certain rituals, it reminds us, oh, I miss my mother, I miss my grandmother, or, why is everybody on their tablets instead of wanting to play a game after dinner? So we remember past rituals, we compare it to what is happening in the present time, and there's a lot of disappointment. And so when you're depressed, a lot of times it's a combination of disappointments. But depression is very treatable, extremely treatable. Yeah. We all know that we talk to ourselves. Well, you have to talk to yourself about the holidays. You have to do a certain amount of affirming self-talk, that you have another holiday to experience, whether it be looking at the lights. We have to generate our own joy. And I think that not expect our joy from others. We have to generate it ourselves.
I like that. Generate our happiness ourselves. Beautiful.
No, absolutely. And, being in the industry of providing long-term care at home, most of our patients are seniors. And we see that all the time, where a lot of them have families who are very involved, and they come and visit, and they spend the holidays with their loved ones, or sometimes we fly them over to wherever they are around the country with their caregivers. But most of them actually stay, in Florida. And, and some of them alone, some of them in assisted living alone. And we do see a tremendous amount of death during the holiday season, and which is very unusual,
Well, when you think about it from a psychological point of view. A lot of times people mentally prepare themselves, and I'm going to go quietly into the night at the end of the year, end the year, right? Or when they think of facing things in the new year, one of the things that's a very important is the will to live. It isn't just what your body's doing, it's what is the will to live. I do want to comment on your services, because your services are exceptional. It makes a difference to be in the home setting. It makes a difference to be around familiar things, to feel that you're still in your home, okay? Sometimes when unfortunately, when there has to be an outside the home, or, a nursing home setting, even in those nursing home settings, we're seeing a proliferation of what we would call small care homes, where people are having homes and they're just, they're being cared for, maybe just 4 or 5 people in a home. So we're seeing a lot of movement in that area because people are living so long. I mean, there's a phenomenal amount of people. I mean, you rarely saw somebody in their 90s. I can remember one of my favorite patients. She came to me when she was 92. And every time we would make another appointment, she would say, "Only if I'm alive, Dr. Marotta." And there was an estrangement in the family that was causing her, at your point, Doris, a lot of depression. And we were together for about 18 months. She reconnected with her family. And the best part, we finished our work when she was about 94. And then I got a postcard from when she was 95 of the family throwing her a party. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
That's wonderful.
That is
That's beautiful,
amazing.
Doc.
As a caregiver, how can you differentiate the holiday blues from depression?
well, I think the difference is what we would call the vegetative signs. In other words, the signs of if they're really not eating, if they're not, if the sleep disruption is more, if, you see a little bit more crying, emotional lability. So you're looking for, those kinds of vegetative symptoms that are going to be more indicative of an actual major depression versus just a little bit of holiday blues because they're going down memory lane. And the other thing is we all need to think about how we label our feelings. I suggest people not think about holiday blues. I suggest, now you know how I do cognitive reframing. I suggest the cognitive reframe that it's holiday memories. And there's some sadness in the people that are no longer with us. So expect that there'll be more emotional volatility during the holidays, a little more joy, a little more sense of people we've lost, a little bit more, and everybody has anxiety about the holidays. Where do I go? What do I do? What degree is materialism? What rituals do we want to keep? What rituals don't we want to keep? Which side of the family are we going to visit? When? And I think so I think the more that we can normalize that the holidays are a very emotional time, then I think people will be able to navigate it better and cope with it better. And make some better choices. One of the things that I see that really worries me is people are like hamsters. They overschedule themselves. They overschedule their parties. They overschedule the activities. They want to make everybody happy, so they're going to go 3 places on Christmas Day. And that's not conducive to having a more pleasurable time.
Well, in my case, my daughters are all grown up and they're out of state. So it's like, okay, so what am I going to do? I mean, the family has grown and it changes. So how do we cope with that as to family being away?
Actually, one of the wonderful things as we're here on a podcast, but you also want to realize that we have FaceTime. You have WhatsApp, if they're international, that you can connect virtually, that and to enjoy that connection. Sometimes we'll have the connections where you'll set it up on a little stand, and if you have grandchildren, you can actually watch your grandchildren undoing their gifts. So I think we have a wonderful opportunity to share in a virtual way if we can't be physically present. I also think that as what we call empty nesters, our children have left, that as empty nesters, one of the things that is really helpful is to create, I call it, your new adult rituals. What sort of adult behaviors would you like to engage in? It might be a special mimosa breakfast.
Ooh, I like that. We got to implement that.
Yeah,
for sure.
We should implement that when we record a podcast on Thursday mornings.
I think so.
Yeah.
Great advice. Great advice.
As I just turned 61, just so you know. And
isn't it wonderful how we're all turning and not looking that way?
Exactly. Hey, I'm the new 40, Doc. But one of the things that when we're younger, we're raising kids, we're working, we're going to college, we're building a career, and meanwhile, there's so much that has happened with the family along the way.
Right.
You know, we hurt each other, we upset each other. There's misconceptions of things. Sometimes our children have misconception of certain things that they grew up with us. Sometimes we have also of them as well, right? And I think that when we get to the age of, you 65, 70, I would say more after 65, small 70 now, nowadays, is that, you reflect back and now you're not talking to your son or you're not talking to your daughter or, whatever the case may be, and you become lonely. Right.
And you're addressing a very important issue. It's called family estrangement. Okay, estrangement in families, and what is that estrangement dynamic? First of all, there's something that's been very different generationally. The generation of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and a little bit into the 50s. There's a different sense. When we were with our grandparents, even if, we came from the age where we were hit with spatulas or whatever we were hit with, that was in my generation as baby boomers, okay?
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I was in boarding school, so I can tell you. And I was so bad when I was a kid that I ended up going from a regular 7-day Adventist boarding school to a non-school. And and they hit my hand with a ruler.
The ruler.
And a wooden spoon. Can you believe that?
Yeah, no, I can believe that. And one of the things but there was sort of this cultural in the United States, and a little bit of respect for the elders. And I do want to talk about that. There is a cultural difference. And if we have an international audience, there is a cultural difference in, I have my daughter-in-law is Chinese. So there is a cultural difference in how they view the elderly and their responsibility to the elderly. Okay. There is, in family estrangement, I think that so many times people, and I think you used a good word, misconstrue, but people maybe are oversensitive. I think one of the best things in family estrangement is to try to reconnect. You never can stop reconnecting. And I always see that as the parents, it's always our role, even if, whether it be we send them a card or a little note, or we send them a text, because you want to move on. You want to try to live in the moment. And the one gift we can get from our children, as much as they may have tortured us at different times, the one gift we can get is time or contact. And sometimes I think they need to know about that. Look, I know, and I don't think you don't want to diminish their feelings in any way. You might want to say, I was a working mother with a growing practice. I've told my son many times, if I was giving myself a report card, maybe a C, could be a C- in parenting. You only can put yourself in so many directions. So sort of validating maybe some of their frustrations, but then at the same time, but I love you and I treasure you. And you did very well and you're a success now and you went to college, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you always want to make the attempt to reconnect. And we need to teach them how to do that. There's no need. Resentment comes from a French word meaning to feel again. So you want to let go of your resentments, not because you're letting the other person off the hook. You want to let go of your resentments because it eats at you. And it actually physiologically puts cortisol in your system, which depresses your immune system. So teaching the younger members of our family or teaching our children that you don't want to resent. You want to accept that we're all imperfect. There's nobody that had a child that wakes up and say, how can I torture my kid today? We all did the best we could. And I'm sure we all fell short at different times, especially for those women that were navigating their professional careers without role models. So I think we want to teach them about the advantage to themselves to let go of resentments and that you can reconnect. You can reconnect in the present. You don't have to carry the weight of the past resentments.
Right. And I think it's so important to, forgive and let go. and move forward as we all make mistakes, forgive and forget and move on, because time is the most precious thing that we have, because time cannot be bought.
But in order to help them move on, you need to validate their resentment. You need to validate, not dismiss, not defend. Say, you know, I hear, there were some choices I made that made it more difficult for you. And that makes me sad. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, it makes me sad. But I love you. And we have a unique relationship. You only have one mother. You only have one father. And that relation, as flawed as the mother or the father may be, we're what you got. And we're not going to be here forever. So let's try to share some special moments in the present.
And what is happening now is, we have a lot of clients in country clubs. We service clients that lives in those high-end country clubs. And one of the things that we're seeing, Doc, is either they have never been married, and usually is more likely women. Those are usually more women than men.
Yeah, in our country club, we have about 500 single women and 110 single men.
So one of the things that we encounter now is mostly ladies who either has never been married, everyone is gone, and also widows who never had children, and now everybody's gone. And one of the other thing that's happening is they're having a little bit of cognitive disorder. So they happen to continue to drive. The police takes their driver's license. They keep going out again. And then, of course, the guard says, "Oh, Mrs. Goldstein just left again." The police go pick it up, bring her back in. And all services have been called in, but she doesn't let anybody in. And we have actually called Adult Protective Services, and many of them, to see, hey, listen, since she's not letting us in, maybe the state will go in with the police just to make sure she's okay,
Well, that's where you bring in the medical team on that, the primary doctors. The doctors know their patients well. And particularly if somebody is really having a cognitive decline, a lot of times they're oppositional, okay? There's two different assessments. One assessment is a very major assessment that involves the court, which is called competency. That's where they can't handle their finances, where you have to have a guardian. That's a very complicated process. But there is another assessment that they are inadequate to make their medical decisions, that they may not be, they might be, if they're having cognitive difficulties, they may be non-compliant with their medication. It's not just about they can take a shower, they can dress themselves. It has to be their ability to take their medication properly. And if they're not safe to drive, obviously, as you know, physicians have the ability to take away licenses. So it really, I would think, is the more that, as you say, it takes a team, it takes a village. And I think many times, especially because you're connected with the property managers, you may be the first ones that see some of this symptomatology. So it's really finding out the doctors involved. And, a lot of times, hopefully they may be a friend, or sometimes there's nobody, just like you said, there's nobody. So you may be the key one to try to get the doctor involved.
Well, so those cases that we are talking about is actually the property manager and the property manager assistant is the one who knows about those people and contact us to see if we can help. But here's the problem. They're not allowing anyone to come into the home, right? To get that information. Who's your physician? Who are you seeing? Who's your primary care? That's the problem, because that person completely don't want anybody in a home. Now, God knows how they're living. Even though they're living in a $5 million home, a $6 million home, they don't let anybody in. So that's kind of
they have to let the police in for what we call a wellness check. They have to let them in for a wellness check. It's not optional.
So let me ask you a question. So we have a client, right, that doesn't let anybody in. So, and she's in a country club. So could we suggest to our referral source to say, call the police to do a wellness check,
Yeah,
right?
wellness check.
And can I be there for that? What kind of HIPAA would it be if...
Well, first of all, it's not HIPAA yet because it's law enforcement wellness check. Okay, that would depend on your relationship with the police. The police might be very happy to have you there. They don't particularly like wellness checks. It's not their primary goal as law enforcement. But that would really depend on the law enforcement person's decision whether you could be there as well.
Because, I mean, that's one of the suggestions that we are going to be able to give it to some of our clients.
Yeah, they can't refuse a wellness check.
Because that way we can find out who the physician is and we can go and say, this is your patient, Mrs. Whatever, and, this is what's the condition. We're very concerned. We have called the police. We got a wellness check on her. How do you want to proceed with it?
The best way, because don't forget HIPAA, that's a privacy protection, protected health information. But we can receive information from anybody. And it's always best in receiving information is to find the person's email, because put it in the email, because that gives the physician documentation, and then it makes it a little bit, because we're all about documentation. So the more data and documentation we have, the better it is. A phone call is not helpful because it's verbal. You have to put it in writing to the doctor once you find out who the doctor is.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. We never had that question answered before, right, Doris?
I know. We're learning so much here today. It's amazing.
It's amazing. I'm so glad that you came and talked to us because, your experience dealing with all this has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, been my pleasure.
I want her to give me, I have my mother who's still alive. She is 96 years old.
God bless her.
She's not as mobile as she used to be, and I know she's kind of quiet. How, for the holiday blues, let's say, okay, because we're getting ready for the holidays.
All the holiday emotionality.
What can we do as caregivers we're in the sandwich generation, as you mentioned before, for our parents and for our kids, the ones that can make it when we get together or during the holidays. What is the best recommendation that you can give us?
I think the best recommendation is to make them feel part of the dynamics. And the way about that is everybody likes to share stories. I would love to hear, when you were 10 years old, what was your Christmas look like?
Ooh, I like that.
People love to go down memory lane. And I think one of the things that happens is our long-term memory stays more intact. They can remember what they did when they were their early years, or the first time. When is the first time that you start believing in Santa Claus? There's so many interesting questions. What is the most special Christmas gift that you can remember getting as a child? So that then they're sharing something of themselves. They feel connected. They don't feel like they're just on the periphery.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that when I call her every time I check on her.
Well, I want to thank you. It's been delightful. You provide very needed services, and I think you make a difference. And as you talked about, there is a large amount of people that are disconnected. Your team and your staff become their world. And, what you're doing is sort of heartfelt and more needed as this population ages. So I want to wish you a very, very wonderful holiday. And thank you very, very much for inviting me as a guest.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. We are so happy to have you here, Dr. Marotta. If any of you have any questions, if any of you would like to share anything in our podcast, they'll be resourceful for all the listeners. Please email us at seniorcaremadesimple@gmail.com. seniorcaremadesimple@gmail.com. We wish you guys a wonderful Thanksgiving with a lot of health, wealth, and a lot of prosperity. Enjoy your family. Love your family. Appreciate your family. Remember, the most precious thing we have is time. Have a great day, everybody.
Senior Care Made Simple, an elder care podcast, has been brought to you by Horizon Care Services, your private duty choice in home care in South Florida. For more information on acquiring home care assistance, visit horizoncareservices.com.